shoot your pictures good, and unless you're going to be making giant prints, unless you're going to be, taking them and totally throwing them all out of whack in your computer, unless you're going to be doing all that stuff, there's not really a reason to shoot raw. If you are, if you're taking a picture for a client and they request raw, shoot raw, and get used to your programs that you have in order to create your raws. Because if you shoot raw, you can't just hand off raw files to someone; they won't be able to see them. You have to have the proper you have to have the proper software to be able to even convert them into a way that's viewable. The advantage with JPEGs is JPEGs are viewable by everybody. Every camera has a different raw profile or different raw standard for it. JPEGs are the standard for across the board around the world. If you have even from a Canon 5D Mark II to a Canon 5D, they're two different kinds of raw files. If you have the software for your 5D and you go try and look at your 5D Mark II pictures, you're not gonna be able to see them. So of course, if you hand them to your client, they're not gonna be able to see them. So when shooting raw, that's something to keep in mind. Also, is who you handing them off to. They're not going to be able to see your raw files. You have to bake them for them, and you have to deliver them. Ooh, here's your baked files. So you might as well have them baked immediately. But like I said, unless you're going to be doing something that's going to be huge, or unless you know that you want to change your pictures later, raw files are also good because they never change. When you change your raw file and you turn it into a JPEG or you turn it into your print-ready file, when you do that, you always have your original file. It's always here, never changed. So you make a copy of it, you make a copy of it, make a copy. You can change it all you want, as many times as you want. And you always have your original file, which doesn't have anything set in it yet. So there are benefits to RAW, and it's fun to work with RAW. If you have a good program to convert RAWs, you can learn a lot by shooting raw and then going in and you learn how your sharpness affects your picture and how your noise reduction affects it, and how you can adjust your exposure and your white balance. You can see what white balance does what in what situations. It's a good learning tool, and it does have its place. But for the most part, I mean, sincerely, I shoot JPEG, probably 90% of the time, if not 95% of the time. Like I shoot JPEG a lot. When I do shoot raw, I find later that I'm regretting it because it's taking up so much space in my computer. I never got back to them. And but Lightroom's a program that's going to get me back into raw, because Lightroom handles raw so easy, and it's just a great program for dealing with raw, that I think I'm going to start shooting raw in situations, and I'm getting more memory and stuff. But it takes up a lot of memory, I would hate to suggest something to you, but I would suggest JPEG. I would definitely suggest JPEG, especially if you're beginning and there's not a real reason to do RAW. It's more work. It's more information, but it's more work. It takes your camera longer. It's going to inhibit. It's going to stop you from being able to shoot fast on some occasions. So there are situations when RAW works. Experiment with RAW. Get to know it. Get to know the benefits of it. Get to know it yourself. Experiment, and then decide for yourself. But as far as shooting everything in RAW, I would suggest not doing it. And if you are going to shoot RAW and you're a beginner and you're not deeply into programs and things, find the mode on your camera that's RAW plus JPEG, and shoot your JPEG, a high quality JPEG, so you always have your high quality JPEG file, and then it goes with your RAW file. So there's a setting on almost all cameras nowadays that's RAW and JPEG together. It'll do both for you and put them both on your camera. So you'll have all your RAW files and you'll have all your JPEG files. Your JPEG files will have the information embedded that your camera set, such as your white balance, your exposure, your color, all that stuff, and your RAW won't. So if there is something wrong and you shot a batch of pictures wrong in your JPEGs, you can go and change them in your RAW, and you can always have your RAW and see how it worked for you. So RAW versus JPEG, cha-ching, I choose JPEG, but there are situations when RAW is the way to go, and find those out. Ask people why their preferences are. Don't just believe someone when they say RAW's better. Oh, because it's a bigger file. Oh, because it has more memory. Like that bigger, more memory, all that stuff. It doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't apply to everything. If you're taking a picture that you're only going to display on the internet, there's no reason to shoot it raw. There's no reason to shoot this huge file if it's just going to be displayed on the internet in a very low quality. So, there are times when RAW is not the best, and I think those times are a lot. So, decide for yourself. I hope you learned a lot. I hope I shed a little bit of light on that for you, and now you have better ammo for your arguments when you argue with people about what's better, RAW or JPEG. It's a heated argument, but have a good one. Be good. Don't argue too much, and I'll see you next month. Bye.